Today, we're going to talk about how to stop clients from self-sabotaging, from sabotaging their success. So the reason I'm making this video is I've had two of my professional trainers that I coach come to me with different client issues, but they're related. So the first one, newer trainer who has found himself dealing with a lot of puppies and doing a lot of potty training or helping clients with a lot of potty training. And he's giving them good instructions about, being consistent and taking the dogs out frequently, but still having trouble with the owners being consistent and not pushing things too far, thus, allowing giving the dog too much freedom, which then causes the dog to have accidents in the house, which of course is really counterproductive when it comes to potty training. So second client, dealing with a very reactive dog and has gone through a bunch of protocols that we reviewed together and getting to a really good place. And she's saying, hey, how do we get clients to stop wanting to push the dog to the point of exploding? So, we want them to get these successful repetitions in and these positive exposures to people. This is a human reactive dog. But clients dog owners, tend to want to always push a little bit further, and then the dog ends up erupting. And again, it kind of becomes counterproductive. And she's explaining that to the client, but having trouble getting the follow through. So how do we resolve this? And obviously there's a number of things that we can do, but I think if I were to pick one thing that's going to make the biggest impact, it's that we need to give people some structure and some goalposts here. And let me explain what I mean by this. So let's start with the potty training example, okay? We can tell people like, hey, this is a young pup. You need to start by taking them out every 30 minutes, taking them out after they've been active, limiting their space, etc. And then gradually, as your dog is successful, you can start extending that to taking them out only every 45 minutes or every hour, giving them access to an additional room of the house, so on and so forth, right? And what we're going to find is a large percentage of people are going to try to push that too soon. So they're going to get a little bit of success, taking the dog out every 30 minutes, they get a few days, things are going good, haven't had any accidents, boom, they try to extend that to an hour, and lo and behold, they have accidents. So my solution there is really simple. How do we provide structure for them, and how do we give goalposts? Well, what I like to do is I have people put like a sheet of paper or a whiteboard on their refrigerator, and I tell them, listen, you're going to keep these rules, whatever the rules are for the stage their dog is in, and every day that you get with no accidents, you're going to put a check mark on that sheet of paper. And your goal is to get 14 check marks. Once you get 14, you can move to the next phase. So if you're letting your dog out every 30 minutes, once you get 14 check marks, you can move to letting them out every 45 minutes or maybe every hour, depending on the age of the dog. But here's the catch is every time your dog has an accident, you have to erase 3 check marks until you're down to 0. We're not going to make you go into the negatives. So if you had, 9 days of success and then your dog has 2 accidents in a row, now you're down to 3. And this is really motivating for people. People hate erasing those check marks. So it kind of makes them get really diligent about watching their dog like a hawk, taking them out frequently. They really want to get those check marks. They really want to get to 14 so that they can expand their dog's freedom. And what happens is just psychologically, it just makes them way more consistent, right? It provides a framework for them. And also it gives them their goalposts. So there's no guessing. There's no ambiguity here. So that's a really straightforward example of how we can provide structure and provide some goalposts for people so they know what they're aiming for and how that can improve client compliance and success down the line, which is overall going to improve the results that you're achieving for your clients, which is going to improve client satisfaction. Now, here's how we do the exact same thing with a dog who is maybe human reactive. Now, again, we're not going to get into methods. I have a ton of protocols that I share with people when I do coaching with them as far as like how I help dogs go from I'm going to explode every time I see a person to, hey, I can be near people and maybe even curious. Maybe even I want to walk up and sniff somebody. But let's say that previously, anytime somebody came within 10 feet, this dog would just explode like 95% of the time. and we've done whatever we were doing, and now we're starting to see some success. People can come within 10 feet, and we're getting a few reps in a row where the dog's not exploding. So same thing happens here. Send the client home, they go to practice this with their friends and neighbors, they get a couple rounds of success, they go, great, let's try and do 5 feet, right? And then the dog blows up and it just sets them backwards super far. So what we want to do is we want to set very, very clear guidelines for when they're going to move forward. So I like to use like an 80% rule here. And I kind of stole this from Bob Bailey. He's a very famous animal trainer, and he uses this in sort of a different context when it comes to shaping new behaviors, but we can apply this similar rule when it comes to removing unwanted behaviors. So what I would say is, okay, look, here's what I want you to do. I want you to think of this in rounds of 10 because it's easier to sort of do math in that sense. And what we're going for here is we're going to stick with 10 feet, and I want you to be able to bring somebody up within 10 feet and have it go totally successfully. And I want minimum 8 out of 10 reps of that. Your dog does just absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Minimum 8 out of 10. And if you can do that 2 rounds, so 20 total reps, where in each one of those sets of 10, you got 8 out of 10 reps were successful, then you can try to push your criteria a little bit. If at any point you dip below the 50% mark, so if you push your criteria and all of a sudden your dog is failing 6 out of 10 times, you need to go back to easier criteria. And so what we're doing here is we're providing a structure and a framework for the dog owners that we're working with, and we're setting clearly defined goalposts. So they know what they're aiming for, and they know when they can move forward, and they know when they need to take a step back. And we're not leaving any room for ambiguity. We're not leaving any room for them to just use their own discretion, because that's not what we want to do. Now, I will say here that whenever I'm working with human reactivity, and especially if we're getting to the point where we're in a range where contact can be made, I'm a really big fan of muzzles. If there's any question at all that the dog might bite, use a muzzle, condition the dog properly to a muzzle, and use the muzzle until it feels almost ridiculous that you're still using it. You've had so much success that it's like it just feels weird to even be using it anymore. But that being said, the idea here is come up with a set of rules to provide to your client, whatever rules you're comfortable with or whatever rules you think fit well for your approach to training, because everybody approaches reactivity a little bit differently, right? Come up with a set of rules that you think is going to kind of set them up for success, and where they know when to move forward, but also when to take a step back. Give them the structure, give them the goalposts, and I think you'll find that it helps people to be a lot more compliant when things are very clearly defined for them. So I hope that's helpful, and if you guys need any help, you know where to find me. Happy training.